Welcome to We Are North Texas, a podcast brought to you by the University of North Texas system that focuses on innovation, compassion, ideas, and accomplishments in our home region of Dallas-Fort Worth. The UNT system is the only university system based in DFW and includes the University of North Texas, UNT Health Science Center, and UNT Dallas. With our heart in North Texas, we transform lives and create economic opportunity through education. Welcome to the We Are North Texas podcast. I'm Paul Corliss, Chief Communications Officer for the University of North Texas system, and I am really excited about today's guest because as a Texas Christian University alumni, I've spent lots of time in Fort Worth, and today we have the mayor, the 44th mayor of Fort Worth, go Frogs, 13th largest city in the country, Mayor Betsy Price. How are you, and how is Fort Worth holding up during the COVID-19 pandemic?
We're great, Paul. Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be able to talk to you. And nobody loves people more than I do. And this part has been really hard, not being able to hug people and not being able to be face to face with them. But Zoom and Teams and all these things have really taken off. And that's been nice to at least see people. You know, Fort Worth has been remarkably blessed during this. We've had lots of deaths, and any one person, one death is one too many. But we are only at about 89 deaths for a city of 900,000 people. That's pretty good, a little better than 3,000 positive cases. I think early on, we got on this. We talked with the governor at first, didn't issue the stay-at-home orders. He left that up to the county judges and the mayors, and the 8 big cities in Texas all came together on conference calls every day, and we all decided we were going to issue very similar orders, and people were very good about complying with it. And now as we've moved to regional reopenings, they've been very good about that too. There are, of course, rare exceptions, and there are people who are unhappy about it, too soon, not enough, but we're doing the best we can with it. And it's been a very, very interesting journey. I don't think any of us have ever experienced anything like this, nor expected to experience anything like this.
Now, you mentioned county judge, and Glen Whitley actually was on the UNT system board of regents, so we know him quite well. What's that relationship like, and how do you guys work together through something like this?
Our relationship is very good. You know, you may remember that I was Tarrant County's tax assessor for 11 years. And Glen at first was commissioner for the Northeast area when I was tax assessor, and then he became county judge. So I've known him 20, 25 years or more, and we have a very good working relationship. We've been a little bit of the yin and yang on things when we needed to, but through this pandemic, I floated ideas, he's floated ideas, and we've talked. I talked to him the first 3 weeks, I talked to him numerous times a day. And now I talk to him on average once a day. And so we've been very blessed. Several of the other counties around don't have that relationship, but I've been fortunate enough to have that. In fact, I co-chair the North Texas Mayor's Commission, which is probably 55 or 60 cities, Tarrant, Dallas, Colonial, Parker, several of them. And as a whole, we've got very good working relationships with our county judges, most of us. And Glen has been easy to work with.
Well, I'm sure that makes a big difference, having that rapport. You gave us a little bit of status on Fort Worth, but where are we from hospital standpoint, businesses, restaurants, all of that? Can you give us just a broad update?
Sure. Our hospitals are in good shape. They've got about 30% capacity, maybe a little more. The ventilator usage is very good. We're better than 50% capacity still to go on ventilators if need be. We talk every week with all the hospital administrators, the top 5 and their subdivision people are there, about what do they need in PPE, what do they need for testing, what do they need, what's their capacity look like. We get a capacity count from them every single morning through the RAC, the regional center that sends us that. It's been really interesting watching this unfold because, you know, we've got for-profit hospitals and nonprofit hospitals and a big children's hospital. And I would say one of the good things that's come out of this is all the hospitals are working really well together on this. They've all come to the table. our county public health has worked really well with them. So I'm very pleased with where we are on the hospitals. And it seems like the COVID patients that are there, on average, their stays have gotten shorter too.
And you guys have restaurants at 50%, is that right? Is that how that's going?
We do have restaurants at 50%. We started at 25%, moved on the governor's order last week to 50%. They still have to have 6 feet social distancing between them. They still have to have masks. The governor had a guideline called Reopening Texas. Texans Reopen, I think. And then we had one called Open Fort Worth that our core committee put together, which was the Committee on Reopening the Economy. And both have the guidelines for sanitation for their workers, all kinds of things. But overall, most people have been compliant. I mean, the patios are a little bit of an issue in some cases because they don't count against the 50% occupancy. The patios can be used and people want to crowd in. The restaurants have struggled to keep people from just getting way too close there. But as a whole, we're moving towards it. It's really hard for restaurants. The restaurateurs will all tell you, for them to make any money at 25 to 50%. They really need to be above that if they're going to keep their head above water.
Such a tough time for that business, the service industry too. You think of the wait staff or bartenders and folks like that have been out jobs. Really a challenge. I wanted to frame that up against the context of the size of Fort Worth, because Fort Worth has grown so much. Gosh, when I went to college at TCU in the late 90s to now, and even, you were elected mayor in 2011 for the first time, and here we are on the cusp of being a top 10 city size-wise in the country. What unique challenges has the growth of Fort Worth presented to you during emergency management like this?
We really have grown. The unique challenges for us particularly have been this fact that we are so spread out. We cover 352 square miles. And we have 14 school districts within the city, and the number of kids in those schools, the largest school district has 87,000 kids, and the smallest has 5,000 or 6,000. So we're also a very, very young city. We're getting younger. We're the youngest big city in Texas. Our average age is 31, but we're a very popular spot for retirees too. So we have a big population. So managing our diversity geographically, in age-wise, has been a real challenge for us. We also have a very heavy tourism industry that has grown dramatically in the 9 years. Arts, tourism, music.
That's had to be a tough hit, huh?
Yeah, way up there. And it's amazing. And those industries have been so hard hit. To manage through and try to help them in this pandemic has been one of the biggest challenges. And that is not something 9 years ago, we would have had smaller tourism and not near the art scene that we have now.
Right. Well, I'm going to have to segue, as we're talking about the cultural and arts district, into our university that is located in that part of town, the University of North Texas Health Science Center, of course. And those of us that work in the UNT family, we are so proud of their leadership during this pandemic, particularly in educating the public on coronavirus with science-based information, and opening testing centers and testing first responders and helping trace contacts. Can you speak about your relationship with Dr. Williams and the Health Science Center overall, and then what they've stepped up to do during the pandemic?
Absolutely. Before the pandemic, even, they were tremendous community partners. UNT Health Science Center, or the Health Science Center now, houses Fit Worth, which is one of the initiatives that we started. And your public health department, our public health school, has been instrumental in helping us as we work through blue zones to try to improve the health of the community. When this pandemic hit, one of the first people we went to was Dr. Michael Williams, and then Dr. Keith Augenbright at UT Southwestern in Moncrief. But Dr. Williams was the first one to say, let me help you with what we need. He volunteered 65 of his public health students to help train people and help do contact tracing, to help stand up the testing center. Our fire department and police helped man it, but he had the expertise to do that. I don't think a day went by the first 6 weeks that I didn't talk to Michael once, twice, or more often, and he never once said no. He never once said, I can't help you. Every single request he said, Yeah, let me get on it. Let me see what angle we can do this. How can we do it? He had volunteers there. He had the knowledge. He knew where to go to find the knowledge to help us get it done. It's just been an amazing partnership. And it's such a critical piece of infrastructure. Lots of students, lots of people getting their doctors, their osteopathic, and now their allopathic with the TCU, UNT.
Right, what a unique partnership that is, too, in your city.
It's a wonderful partnership. I mean, when we kicked that off, I thought nobody else in the nation can claim this kind of partnership. Then we had Paul Dorman come in and underwrite the first year's tuition and books for those kids, and that gave us the opportunity to really recruit a great class. I'm looking forward to wonderful things out of that school.
It is so exciting. Well, I as a UNT person, I could spend the whole conversation on that, but I think our listeners would like to know what other organizations or businesses or partners in Fort Worth have stepped up to help the city and the county.
Just a tremendous number. I mean, our foundations, Fort Worth, has a very strong philanthropic foundation group, and they have all stepped up. United Way has come to the helping us administer some of the small business grants and some of the small business loans. They've also done some of the senior feeding as Tarrant Area Food Bank got a little overwhelmed. They came to the table. Our own employees that were working from home, if they, some of them, their job doesn't fit for working at home, and we had them at home anyway. And so we surplus them and let them volunteer at the food bank and various places. So Fort Worth employees have stepped up and done a wonderful job. I was on a conference call with the big city mayors recently, and a couple of them were fussing about not having enough community support. And I had to stop and think, Fort Worth, there hasn't been a single person turned me down for help during this or turn the city down. It's an amazingly giving city.
It's really one of the biggest small towns that I've ever visited. I live in Dallas now, but go to Fort Worth frequently, particularly for work with the health. Out to lunch or dinner, it seems like I always run into people I know, and everybody knows everybody in Fort Worth to a degree. How do you maintain that small town charm as a city that's on the cusp of having 1 million people?
That's one of our very biggest challenge, because that's one of our strengths. People like the fact that that it has that small town feel, that Western grit, for lack of a better term, but friendliness. And Dallas is a great city, but it's a different vibe. Dallas is a big city with a huge city vibe. Fort Worth is a big city, like you said, nearly 1 million people, with a very much a small town friendly attitude. I have to remind people all the time when I speak, you came to Fort Worth, you brought your business here, you came to work here, you decided to live here for a reason. It's because you like the people and because you like the atmosphere. And we have to keep selling that message. Our chamber has to help us. Our Visit Fort Worth has to help us. It isn't just the Western piece, it's the attitude of the people here. And I think the lack of density really appeals to people. They like the fact that they can spread out and they can live in inner city in a dense area, or they can live in the suburbs and still have the assets of the cultural district and the stockyards and the zoo and Magnolia and a beautiful downtown area.
Oh, it really is unique. Well, those of us that have spent time in both cities are well aware that there's a little fun rivalry with Dallas and Fort Worth. But I was curious, with a situation like this that's really much bigger than just one city or another, was there any collaboration or discussion with officials in Dallas or other cities and counties? How does that work when you reach a situation like this? Do you guys talk to each other?
Yes, we do. Absolutely. I talk to Mayor Johnson once a week and sometimes more often, even before the pandemic. You're aware that the DFW airport belongs to the city of Fort Worth and the city of Dallas, and Mayor Johnson and I both serve on the board. So we talk about that, but we talk about a lot of the business that goes back and forth between us. And we've got a very good relationship. And during this pandemic, certainly, I picked up the phone, called him, he called me several times, and then we had all the surrounding areas on calls with us. We had all the superintendents every day. For a while now, we're down to once a week. We had our Austin delegation, our Washington delegation on calls once a week and sometimes twice a week. So everybody has what impacts Fort Worth impacts Dallas, and what impacts Dallas impacts Fort Worth. And then certainly for us, Arlington is impacted by what we do, North Richland Hills, Keller, even as far out as Weatherford and Aledo. What's going on here? People don't see boundaries between their cities. They choose a place to live forth for work. They go back and forth for dinner, for entertainment. Not much entertainment right now, but it's getting back. It's hard. But you have to have some coordinated approach to this. Or when we first closed Dallas and Fort Worth and the smaller surrounding communities, Parker County was not stay at home. So people were leaving here, going to Parker County, having dinner, going to a movie, and coming back. And we saw some migration of the virus both into Parker County and back into Fort Worth. And so we tried to get everybody together, and they're pretty much on the same schedule we are now.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see those things come together. You mentioned a couple things in your answer to that question that drew my thought process in another direction. You mentioned the airport. You also mentioned entertainment in Fort Worth, and that got me thinking of the economy in Fort Worth and the challenges of the travel industry, and certainly must be facing in the airlines. American Airlines, of course, is in your backyard. And, I also thought about entertainment, and I thought about the stockyards and Billy Bob's and, that wonderful, there's entertainment outside of the stockyards in Fort Worth too, but how are those areas going to fare long term, and what are you doing from a city standpoint to try to help businesses recover during, as we kind of come out of this or begin to?
Well, first, on the airport, American Airlines is our largest corporation, and they are a Fort Worth company headquartered here. They've got probably 30,000 employees spread out in Fort Worth and at the edge of Fort Worth in the airport. The airport is the biggest single economic engine that we had, and business at the airport is off 90% or more. Oof. The first month alone in this, the second half of March and the first 2 weeks of April, the DFW airport lost $1 billion. Not American, but DFW itself. And American's our largest partner at the airport. 80% of our flights coming out of DFW are American. And remember, it's the third busiest airport in the nation and probably fourth, but it also is the best managed. We ranked 1 or 2 in overall airport management for about 10 years now. And we have a very good reserve, and we're going to get through this. It's going to change airline travel. American's going to get through it too. But it's a really tough time right now in the travel and air industry. On our entertainment areas, we were at the stockyards yesterday because clearly, one of the big draws in the stockyard is the herd, the Longhorn that goes twice a day. And we haven't been able to do that since March because it draws shoulder to shoulder crowds. We could have the Longhorns out, but we can't have that size crowd out. So we came up with a solution and debuted it last week. You can now get a free ticket. You just have to go on the app and reserve it. 20 people at a time, again, social distance up on a viewing platform. They can see the herds. They can see the drovers. It's got a little Western story goes with it. They show them how they brand and how they rope them, why they use bull whips to drive them, not to hit them, but the cattle respond to the pop of the bull whip. Mm-hmm. And the stockyards is gradually coming back. We're doing a major renovation out there, probably $300 million renovation with a private developer called Heritage Foundation. And they are building Hotel Drover and opening a whole bunch of new shops. And 2 or 3 of their new shops have opened, clearly at 50% capacity. But we're gradually easing back into that. And the Fort Worth Zoo reopens, had a soft reopening yesterday and reopens tomorrow for the public.
What a big see that is, too.
Yeah, that's a huge draw for us. Most of our entertainment areas are coming back. The convention business is very slow to come back, but we think the draw there will be drive time, people who want to just come from West Texas or Oklahoma or South Texas or East, who can come in a day's time, see Fort Worth, go to dinner, maybe go to some performance or something, and then go back home because people don't really want to travel and stay going from home much right now.
Right, yeah, you kind of change your strategy during this time for certain from a tourism or convention standpoint. Well, a huge event is coming to town as sports nationally get restarted. The PGA is going to come to Fort Worth for the Charles Schwab Challenge at Colonial. I've been to Colonial dozens of times, even parked cars there back in the day. And one of the draws was really people watching, and the who's who of Fort Worth would come out, and that's not really going to time around. What's it going to look like?
Yeah, it's going to be very different because, like you, I grew up going to Colonial, and I've been here all my life. So you can imagine how many times I've been there. And we had friends who parked cars in their yard, and we helped them, and our kids helped them. And certainly people had before parties and after parties. And you did go people watching. It's great people watching, but it's great golf too. And because there's not even been any televised sports, this is a really big kickoff. This will be first live televised, no fans, but it's got the best field that Colonial has ever had, probably the best field of anywhere outside the Masters. It's got because they all want to come back and play. It's a challenge to manage. Everybody has to be tested. All the golfers, all the caddies, all the media, and the PGA. We kind of went back and forth on how we were going to do that, and we didn't want to take from community testing. You know, testing's been a bit of an issue,
sure,
and we didn't have the excess testing, but they've arranged for their own testing for everybody. There'll be limited volunteers. We'll have some volunteers. You have to have some marshals on the course to help, and clearly you got to have a few people in the clubhouse, and you got to have some wait staff to furnish food for them. But they've arranged the testing for them, and then every day there'll be screening, and we'll be screening them as people where they park before they can go into the clubhouse. Everybody has to be screened. I think it's going to work well. I mean, it's not been the easiest thing to get done. The PGA's been amazing to work with. The officials at Colonial have been amazing. And we wanted to make this happen. We wanted Fort Worth to be there. So we're really excited. And when it debuts, we've got 3 other events. First IndyCar race is happening at Texas Motors with no fans. It's a one-day event. It's a little easier logistically than Colonial because it's just one day. And then we'll have a rodeo in the Northside Coliseum that's the actual finals from the Houston rodeo that got cut short. And it's a one-day event. It won't have any fans, just the cowboys and cowgirls competing.
Well, just having those events in town, I think, has to make you feel like you're healing. A couple questions that follow up on the PGA event. The first one is, assuming TV ratings are going to be huge, right? There has been nothing for rabid sports fans like me or anybody else to watch, and we're going to be excited. Does Fort Worth get any commercial inventory to spotlight the city? What do you do with that if you do have that?
The Promotion and Development Fund, which is a fund that has a big event every year and raises money to help promote the city. And there's a board of directors that run that, and the mayor chairs it. And people can submit applications for grants to do things. And the Promotion Development Fund granted $50,000 to Visit Fort Worth to use for partial airtime during Colonial, and a couple of other things that we're doing, not just Colonial, but there will be a big splash for Fort Worth.
Well, it'll be exciting to see that. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you for a pick or a rooting interest from the PGA field since it's such a strong tournament.
Oh, they're all going to be good. I don't know that I could pick one right now.
See, that's a good mayor-type answer there, Mayor Price. What other big events outside of sports are going to get going? I know it's challenging. You mentioned the rodeo and the automobile race, but are there other big events that are coming down the pike, or is it sort of a wait-and-see approach?
There are other things that are being planned, but there are a lot of things that have been pushed back to fall that are still kind of wait and see. Concerts in the Garden, which is a big summer draw for us, got canceled. They'll be looking at maybe redoing that in the fall. The Bass Performance Hall summer performances are still a little bit in limbo. We're working with the governor what they will allow for big gatherings like that. We're working with Bass Hall. As you know, Hamilton, which is the biggest live production, was scheduled in Fort Worth, and they have canceled Hamilton. So there are a lot of things kind of still up in the air that we're working on, including this reopening the city services. I mean, we've got our community centers to worry about, which has Silver Sneakers, seniors programs, all the way to young kids dance, athletics, Camp Worth that we always have 5,000 to 8,000 children in. Our swimming pools, we haven't gotten open yet. There's a lot still in the works that we're planning for and working hard on.
Well, this thing has been tough on parents, and especially when you don't have those elements available. How are families coping in Fort Worth?
Well, I'll say one thing that I have really loved, and I hope this holds, is as a whole, more and more people are out in their neighborhoods. They're getting to know their neighbors. They're walking their kids. They're walking their dogs. They're riding their bikes. They're running. I was quarantined for 2 weeks and was at home every day, and I set my office up where it kind of looked out to my street. And I mean, it was amazing to see the number of people out. So people down in the parks are just great. It's happening all over the city. And, you want that. You want strong neighborhoods. You want people to know each other. You want people taking responsibility for their health. Pandemics like this don't hit really healthy populations near as hard as they do those where the health is at risk. So that's been a real benefit, a real plus. And I do hope that holds for families and for children and for all of us.
My own sanity of also being in the house, I've gotten out on my bicycle and ridden most days of the week. And I understand you're an avid biker. Have you been able to get on the bike? Or I know you also ride horses. Have you been able to do anything like that to ease the stress of being the mayor of a city of about 1 million people during an unprecedented pandemic? What are you doing to keep sane?
The only way to get through this, to keep sane, and it's pandemic or not, the only way to be mayor in a city this size, and you've got, you put that hat on and turn the bill around on it all day long, facing different jobs. And during the pandemic, the stress is high, is to keep exercising. I'm an avid exerciser. For one thing, I love good food and I like a glass of wine occasionally. So I got to exercise to take care of that. But during the pandemic, when it first started, my trainer would come to my house in the afternoons or early mornings and we would work out. And then when I got quarantined and couldn't see everybody, the first day I was quarantined, he put all this stuff on my front porch and said, to get through this, you're going to have to do your workouts. And I'm leaving you a driveway gym and you and your husband can do it. And I'll give you a set of exercises for every day. And then in between, we would take our bikes out and ride early in the morning or occasionally ride late in the afternoon where we didn't have to be around a lot of people. But yeah, I've probably ridden 400 miles this month alone so far.
That's incredible.
What
kind of bike do you ride?
Which one? I have too many bikes.
Oh, I love it.
I have a Cervelo road bike and a Trek Demon road bike, and I have a hybrid bike. And I also have an e-bike, a pedal assist e-bike. That's just for fun. I ride it around to the grocery store and various places for fun.
Oh, how cool. What mobile app do you track your workouts on? Do you use one? I use Strava.
I use Strava or Active, either one. And now I have a new Garmin watch that tracks them on Garmin Connect, but it connects to Strava too.
Love it. We'll have to talk cycling next time I see you at the Health Science Center.
Bikes are really fun. And I've had a couple of my rolling town halls over at UNT Health Science Center. And I've really missed that. We've had to not do our rolling town halls. We invite people to come ride in different neighborhoods and ride with us. And so we've canceled those, but we're going to get back on them pretty soon.
You got that great Trinity River Trail is incredible.
It is incredible. 90 miles of trails. It's very, very busy right now. And people need to remember everybody loves their music, but think about it like the highway. You don't plug yours up when you're driving your car. You shouldn't when you're out on the trail either. You should keep at least one ear open so you can hear people say, passing on your left.
Obviously, you're super busy. I wanted to close with a two-part question and then let you get back to work. The future for Fort Worth. Short term, what does the future look like? And long term, how is Fort Worth and other big cities, how are they going to be different after this pandemic? We say here at UNT that higher education isn't going to be the same after this. And I don't think big cities are going to be the same either. But short-term future and long-term future, your thoughts, please.
Well, I think short-term future is good. I think we're gradually reopening this, and as we reopen in phases, we look at the end of 2 weeks, we look to see what the trend is, and we're prepared to slow back if the trend is going up. So far, as we moved into 25% for restaurants, we did pretty well that 2 weeks. Now we'll, see what the 50% does. So short-term, we're in good shape. We've got $10 million dedicated to help small businesses. Those are grants. We're prepared to do an additional $5 million for small businesses. That program opened for businesses applications yesterday and runs through June 8th. So people need to get their applications in. There are lots of resources right now. We formed Fort Worth Now, which is a group to help us with recovery and with growth. But at long term, Fort Worth is poised to really do well. There are tons of businesses calling who are saying, we need out of these really dense cities. We need away from some of the subway systems until they get a better handle that are so dense, because postmortem is going to prove a lot of that helped spread this in New York and Chicago and LA and some of these areas. We've got a great draw. We're well managed. The city's finances are in good shape. I think our future is really bright. I mean, I'm talking every day to some company that's calling and saying, tell us about Fort Worth. Tell us what you might have to offer. We will lose some jobs. The estimate is that we'll lose 20% of our small businesses. We've got to recruit new business to help take that place. We've got to help get our people who've been displaced in their job retrained. And we've got the resources to do that. I'm very bullish on Fort Worth right now.
Well, we feel great about having you as the mayor of Fort Worth, and we're in our UNT Health Science Center hat. We appreciate so much the support you've provided over the years and continue to have that great partnership. And thank you so much for joining us today on the We Are North Texas podcast, Mayor Betsy Price. Thanks so much for the insights. We appreciate it. To our listeners, thanks for joining us. I'm Paul Corliss, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you, Paul.
UNT World is a special place filled with talented and dedicated students, faculty, and staff that do amazing things every day. With our heart in North Texas, we transform lives and create economic opportunity through education. We are North Texas. I'm Paul Corliss. Talk to you soon.